On today's podcast, we have the one and only Barry Squire. Barry is the man you definitely want to get to know if you're looking to get hired in a band, if you're looking to go out on tour as a musician, if you're looking for work as a musician, Barry is the man to know. We talk about what his work entails. We talk about what he looks for. We talk mostly about what the artists and the clients that are hiring him to put bands together for them look for. We also talk about what it is that they want to see in terms of social media, in terms of your presentation, in terms of your whole look, everything about it, in terms of the marketplace today. A lot of great info you don't want to miss. Insiders, are you ready? Welcome to MUBUTV's Insider Podcast, where our mission is to educate, empower, and engage artists and music business professionals who are dedicated to having a successful career in the new music industry. Here are your hosts, Ritch, Esra, and Eric Knight. Welcome back, Insiders, to another episode of the MUBUTV Insider Podcast, where our mission is to educate, empower, and engage your music career. On today's episode, we sit down and talk with Barry Squire, one of the most important people you need to know if you're looking to get hired as a musician for a tour, movie, TV show, or commercial. Barry is the man to know. We discuss what bands are looking for in the musicians they hire today, how they find the musicians that they want to work with, what are the best ways to present yourself, the importance of social media, and most of all, how to get on his radar as a musician. But first, a word from our sponsor.
Hey Insiders, are you looking to take your music career to the next level? Then you need to know about the Music Business Registry. The Music Business Registry is the leading music industry publisher of the most up-to-date contact information for major and independent record label A&R, music publishers, artist managers, music attorneys, music supervisors, and much, much more. The Music Business Registry is the trusted industry standard and source serving the music business community for over 28 years with the most accurate and up-to-date contact information available. Their titles include the A&R Registry, the Film and Television Music Monthly, the Music Publisher Registry, and the Music Attorney Registry. All of their publications are available in print, PDF, CSV, or online subscription. Visit them now at musicregistry.com and receive a 10% discount by using coupon code MUBUTV10 at checkout. That's musicregistry.com, coupon code MUBUTV10. When you're ready to put your music to work, musicregistry.com.
Welcome back, Insiders. Today's featured interview is with the great Barry Squire. Who is Barry Squire? He's the gentleman that if you're a musician who's looking to get into a band, who's looking to get into a tour, who's looking to get into, a situation where you need to be hired as a musician, this is the man. It's a very unique position. He has had it for over 25 years. He talked to us extensively about the work, about the criteria, and about what's necessary and the kinds of information that you're going to need in order to succeed in that particular world.
Absolutely. And what I really loved is he goes into a deep dive about the do's and don'ts of how to prepare for an audition, what to do, what to have ready, your website, videos, and, really some interesting anecdotal information on how to prep for this. So this is an episode to all musicians that are wanting to get these kind of gigs will not want to, not listen to. So Insiders, with that, sit back, relax, and enjoy our featured interview with Barry Squire.
Hey, Barry, thank you so much for joining us. I really appreciate it.
Oh, sure.
Tell us a little bit about your background in the music business. I believe you started as a drummer.
So I worked with my father. He was a bass player. I was a drummer. I think as I got into my late 20s, early 30s, I realized that I should learn a little bit more about the music business and I should have a plan B. And it's a tough living being a drummer, especially a full-time drummer. So I thought that maybe I would investigate the music business, and I started by applying for a scholarship through the Grammy organization to take a UCLA extension A&R class. So that was a couple reasons. One, I wanted to learn more about the business, but I also didn't want to get ripped off if I'm going to continue on as a recording artist or a drummer. So I thought it would be worthwhile for two reasons. So this whole music business career started with that class.
Okay, yeah, I remember that class very well. It was the very first class that I taught at UCLA, and I remember meeting you in the class.
Yes, so I have to give credit here to anybody that might be interested that it was because of Ritch and his UCLA A&R class that launched my career in the music business. That's
Although,
where it started. And I always appreciate what you've done, Ritch, and the quality of the topics and the speakers that you brought in. So without that class, I don't think I would be where I am today in the music business.
oh well, thank you so much, Barry. I appreciate that. As I recall, you were starting to work at Warner Brothers at that time, which was, one of the most eminent and preeminent labels in the music business. You started working in the A&R department there.
So I first was interested in doing an internship, and that came through a strange thing. I was a session musician at Universal Studios, and one of the artists I was backing on TV was a Warner Brother recording artist. So he was on a TV show, and a lot of my work at Universal was what they call sideline work, which means you go on camera and you mine to pre-recorded tracks, or sometimes you play live. But this artist was signed to Warner Brothers. I was in his backup band at a high school prom. And during the downtime, and there's plenty of downtime on these things, he said, yeah, I'm signed to Warner Brothers. I said, hey, would you be able to introduce me to your A&R person? And I'd be interested in talking about an internship. That's all I wanted to do at the moment. So he said, yes, let's talk next week. Immediately, people in the industry told me, don't try and do that now, Barry. It's December. Nobody ever gets hired in December. Everybody's on vacation. It's pointless. But fortunately, I didn't listen to everybody. So I had an interview at Warner Brothers with Roberta Peterson the week right after Christmas, and they offered me an internship. So that was the starting point for my relationship with Warner Brothers.
Okay, and you went on to have a career in A&R.
Right. That was, no, at that point, I was strictly a drummer, and almost everything was through Universal Studios. So that was my income. And I was working also for the Musicians Union, which is where I started collecting names of musicians way back in 1987. I was working there counseling people on the music business and pay scales and rock music and contracts and things. So, and then I would work playing in nightclubs with local bands, and I would work doing different things like I think the shows that made me the most money at Universal, I still get checks from Scarface, which I was cut from a nightclub scene in that. I get a check from Back to the Future, and I was cut from a nightclub scene in that. However, they kept the tracks, the music. And also, I was in David Hasselhoff's backup band on Knight Rider. There's a famous Quincy episode where there's a punk band. So that was helping sustain me. And I still, though, thought this would help and wanted to pursue it at Warner Brothers. So after a number of meetings with Roberta at Warner Brothers, they committed to bringing me in as an intern. One piece of advice I can give you for anybody that ever does an internship is really research the person that you're meeting with. That's so important. In my case, not only did I learn everything I could about Roberta, I also learned everything about the bands that she was involved with and who she was thinking about signing and what kind of music she liked. The fact that Ted Templeman was her brother. So I knew a lot of things about her before I ever sat down with her. So they offered me an internship at, I think at the time it was $10, $15 an hour at 20 hours a week was my entry level into the internship. And then I couldn't survive only on that money, so I had to do all kinds of other jobs. In addition to playing drums, I was supplementing my income by being a medical research subject at UCLA, and that pays different prices depending on what they do to you. But whatever it took, I was going to make sure this happened, and I was going to devote my time to this internship to see it through.
Let me ask you, where did the idea come from with your business now of providing musicians to bands and to artists and to touring, to the music industry, essentially?
Well, what I did is I think that I wanted to do everything I possibly could at Warner Brothers to make myself valuable to them. I had amassed a lot of musicians, hundreds of musicians from working at the Musicians Union. Right. So I offered to help with the bands that were signed to Warner Brothers. If the Red Hot Chili Peppers needed a guitarist, I would say, hey, look, I can help you with that. Or if Chris Isaak needed a musician, or if Prince needed girl musicians. So in addition to talent acquisition, I was also providing this service to our artists. And it got around that I was helping people at Warner Brothers with their bands. And so probably 20 years ago, I got a phone call from the management company for Alanis Morrissette. And they said to me, listen, you know what you do at Warner Brothers, how you help your artists fill in these spots and go on tour. Could somebody hire you to do that outside of your label? And I said, let me check. And they said, look, Alanis is on our sister label, Maverick. So the company said to me, as long as you do it on your own time, that's fine. So my first project was Alanis Morissette. And fortunately for me, she really liked the band. It had a couple people that went on to do big things. Taylor Hawkins is the drummer. Now, of course, the Foo Fighters. And Chris Chaney is a major session bass player, was in the band. Jesse is the guitarist of Morrissey. And so I had taken it more seriously, started organizing computer programs and things like that. And then through Alanis, the musicians in her band, the management, Maverick, it just started to grow in a grassroots level. And I started to build and build more and more musicians that I could refer. And so it started to be very much a part-time business. Without actually even trying, people just started calling me and saying, can you help us with this tour or this band? So it started with about 300 musicians. It just went over 10,000 now.
Wow, that's really extensive.
That's amazing. Yeah, I mean, your name is legendary, obviously, here now, all the years you've been doing this. This is Eric Knight. And, it's interesting because there's a connection with you and I, because I don't know if you recall, I actually went through a couple of your auditions while I was at MI studying. And one of those gigs I almost got, if you recall, the Korn auditions back in 05, 06, when they were looking for a background singer. And, I'm curious how, take us through your process of how it works, how you get the brief or you get the call from the label or American Idol or whichever one of these outlets that reach out to you. And how does that whole process, begin and end?
Yes, I remember well, Eric. You're a man of many talents, and your diversity in the music business has really paid off. So
thanks.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
So what I do is I decided not to be an agent. An agent collects money from musicians. And that was a lot of thought went into that decision. So if I am able to find a tour for somebody, then I don't ever collect any commission. At one point, Taylor Hawkins told me, Barry, you should have taken my offer to manage me. You would be sharing the money from the Foo Fighters. However, it's great to work with a musician that's doing really, really well. But there's going to be a time with many musicians where they come to you and it's not such a prosperous time. And they really now are reaching out to you because they're having income problems or marital problems due to work, or there's all kinds of things when you agree to represent somebody as a manager, as you know, or an agent. So I thought I would love the good times, the great tours, the commission that I would get, but I also don't want to be feeling guilty when a musician reaches out to me, depending on me for their income and their livelihood and everything else. So I made a conscious decision not to be an agent. So I thought, well, then how am I going to make a living at this? So the answer is that people would hire me as a consultant, which would be based on their project and what they need, how long I have to put into it, and how much work is involved. And so I work on their band, their project, their casting, their TV show, or whatever it may be, for until everything is resolved, and then I move on to the next thing. And that seems to be a good formula for me. I'm feeling like that's a better situation for me than to impose on the musicians. I think the only thing I've ever taken from a musician for getting them tours and work and everything else is a $10 Starbucks gift card at Christmas. So I really am against taking money from musicians. And if I can continue to do this with the client paying a consulting fee, that's how I end up being able to stay in business.
That's great. Yeah. And I mean, it's like kind of like the best of both worlds with that, and everybody comes out winning. So that, yeah. And you're in such a unique niche. I mean, I think it's such a unique area that you work in. Tell me, Barry, how has your business creatively evolved over the last 25 years? What was the market like when you started versus now?
Before I was, actually, it started like this, that people would contact me. They would trust me to bring 10 or 15 musicians to a rehearsal studio. At the end of the day, they would say, we like this certain drummer. This is who we want to hire. Or they had the option of saying, you know what, we want to have a callback, and we want to hear 2 or 3 people we like from today, and we want you to bring many new drummers down. And so at that point, that's how they went about hiring people. There might be a couple callbacks, but they would choose from people that they saw live. So over time, as social media evolved and it became something where now that people depend very much on YouTube and social media. And so now what they want to see, rather than set up an audition and bring 15 drummers, is send us the social media links for 50 drummers, 100 drummers. We will pick from those maybe 5 that we want to come to the rehearsal studio. Or sometimes, which is completely different than it used to be, is they've actually hired somebody from YouTube videos without ever meeting them.
Wow.
I did an audition a year ago for a multi-platinum artist, and that artist was interested in girl musicians. So I sent them all kinds of different girl musicians for bass, drums, guitar, keyboards, background singers. At the end of the week, I said, okay, which ones do you want me to bring to SIR tomorrow? And they said, oh, Barry, no, it's good. We hired everybody from the YouTube videos. And I said, well, you have the whole band together? They said, yeah, we're good. I said, don't you want to even meet them, and see if they smell like alcohol, or, if you're going to get along? Oh, no, man, we're good. So the big difference now is that if you're a musician, you really have to have your social media in order. And I can tell musicians this. I watch a lot of major acts, how they research. And the first thing they do when they're looking at your social media is they go to YouTube. So it's really critical for a musician to have good YouTube. They don't spend long on your YouTube page. The mistake that musicians make is that they put way too much on there. The average artist that's in a position to hire you might look at a minute or two of 2 or 3 videos. So you only need 5 to 10 videos, but they have to be current videos. Too many people get eliminated because the videos they send us are from 2010 or 2012, and they don't look like that now or anything else. Now, if you're a musician and you don't have YouTube, they think that you're amateur. They think you're hiding. You might be the most amazing guitar player, but if you don't have YouTube, then you're in trouble. First, they look at YouTube, then they move on to Instagram, and that's primarily for the purpose of looking at your photos, which is another thing to make sure that you have current, good photos, because a lot of it has to do with somebody's image and what they're going to look like on stage. So they move from Instagram, and on Facebook, they're mainly looking at your posts and where you might live, and what kind of activities you have. And finally, number 4 is going to be your website. For some reason, people prefer to go to that last because there's a lot of jumping around and they never seem to be current. So the website is not as important as people might think it should be. So when it comes to your social media, you're better off to have links to things. MP3s are a thing of the past. Downloads onto a phone are not what people want. They would prefer to open a phone or a computer and be able to click on a link and go right to that. So if you are putting a resume, you're better off not to send it as an attachment. It's better to actually copy it into an email than something that people would have to download. And things change all the time. But with social media now, what happens is that I put a lot of emphasis on that. The way it works now, this year, is that I send the artist a questionnaire and they fill it out. The questionnaire says things like, what are your intentions? What's your vision? What kind of music? There's a section where they say special requests, where they tell me it has to be a vegetarian, it has to be a non-smoker, it has to be a smoker, somebody that does drugs, doesn't do drugs, any little thing they want to put. Then I go and match it up with a database. I send the employer people that I think will match up with what they're looking for. And then they choose from the links. And in some cases, it stops there. Or in many cases, it goes on. And then I actually set up an audition. But if you are a musician, know that it's really important to have social media, and everything should be current. Check and make sure you show it to people so that there's nothing embarrassing in your social media. And that's where it would start. So if you want to prepare, it doesn't matter. You may be the most amazing musician, but if you don't have YouTube or if you don't have current social media, you probably won't be able to compete.
Let me ask you then, Barry, beyond good players then, who are proficient and so forth, what should that YouTube video consist of? Just them in performance? Should it include them in, their look? What qualities really stand out in a YouTube video, if that's so important?
The most important thing in the YouTube video is that they're current. They don't need to be expensive. And so what you would want to do is I get primarily videos from people in their homes playing to a track, doing a cover tune. It's better for singers if they're singing to a track, if they're trying to get on a tour or something, so we have a reference point. If you're an original artist, then you're going to want to play one of your original songs. The key that I can tell you here is that you don't need to spend a lot of money for this YouTube video to start. If you have an original song and it gets a lot of attention, you can go back and redo it. But for the purposes of getting hired on a tour or on a television show or casting, you're better off to do something simple at your home with a GoPro camera and have somebody film it. If you don't have any other resource, you can use a cell phone, but the quality of the audio is not the same. A GoPro camera, for example, with a drummer, if somebody can stand over a drummer, or you can position a camera facing down on the drums, that would be great. And then record a song that's going to be compatible with the artist you're trying to apply for. So if it's a Metallica song, you're going to want to do something heavy. If it's a pop band, you might want to do Uptown Funk. And so a simple video, but make sure you always check the video, check the quality, see what's going on in the background. And most important is, before you ever send a video, make sure you're sending the right video. I have a personal collection here on my computer of people that sent me the wrong videos of them twerking, videos of them doing martial arts.
Wow.
Videos where you can hear people, fighting in the background, and every kind of thing imaginable. Over sex videos. So
Wow.
I would suggest that make sure that the link works. Nothing is worse for you than a link that doesn't work. But before you send the video, show it to some people and look at it. I had another video last year of a guy shredding on a Metallica solo on his back porch, but a dog ran out of his dog door and did a deposit on the lawn right at the peak of his solo. And it was almost as though the dog was commenting on his Metallica cover ability. And the dog ran back in. And I wanted to say to this guitarist, did you look at that video? I don't know. I thought, well, maybe he's like being punk rock, and he wants it in there. But it turns out he had no idea that the dog had run out the door, made a comment, and ran back in.
He never saw the video before he sent it. Interesting.
No, he was in such a hurry to send a video that he recorded it on his back porch. And the reason he was in a hurry is because he had not prepared videos in advance, thinking, oh, those aren't important. So when he found out he couldn't be considered without a YouTube video, he got up at the break of dawn and did one, just sitting on his back porch with a boom box. I have to be honest and say that in a lot of the videos, they're looking to see what you look like.
Right.
And so we wish in a perfect world they were judging you entirely on your keyboard ability or something like that. But the honest truth is they're interested in your playing, but they also want to see what you look like.
Yeah, definitely. No, I think looks is a big part of it, especially with these bands that are trying to put, or artists that are trying to put bands together. They want somebody that looks really cool and hip and also that can play their instruments. So it's just always a plus. Let me ask you, Barry, do you get requests for more than just musicians for touring? Like what about recording one-off shows or any other like musical endeavors?
I started to collect names of tour managers, sound people, front of house, merchandising people. But I think that that's better handled by sound companies and touring companies that do that type of thing. If somebody were to say to me today, I need a tour manager, then I would have no problem referring them to somebody. But it's hard enough to keep track of 10,000 musicians as it is. And I thought, why make it worse? You always have to, if you're a musician, you always have to be updating your social media. Make sure you have Gmail or current email as opposed to something, from years ago. And so it's just really important to keep everything current. And I have to say that the music business, being a full-time musician, is an ebb and flow. And so I try to keep current lists of musicians, but one person might say to me, hey, listen, man, I've got a family now, and my father-in-law offered me a job at his construction company, so I'm going to hold off on this audition. But for everybody that leaves the music business temporarily as a musician, then there's always seems to be a young guy from Lincoln, Nebraska, that arrives here and tells me, I'm here in LA, I only want to do recording sessions. So it's a constant ebb and flow. And a lot of times it's mutual. Somebody at a certain point in their career just says, look, I don't want to be on the road again. There's a great movie musicians might want to look at called The Other F Word. And the F word in that refers to father. And they interview many, many punk musicians from back in the 80s and 90s, from everybody from Josh Freese to Jim from Pennywise. And they talk with them about how it is to be a musician as you age, how you feel guilty. On one hand, you need to support your family, but on the other hand, you're out touring when the father-daughter dance happens or something. So it's always changing, and I just decided that it would be better for me to concentrate on keeping musicians and not start to build a whole other world of the support people. The crew is what they're actually referred to as.
Right. Well, let me ask you then, Barry, is in terms of the current marketplace for what you do, for your work, is this a good time for people getting work?
I wish I could say that there was the most opportunities there's ever been, but that is really not the case. And the reason for that is that when you listen to the music that's on pop radio right now, there's very little live instrumentation involved in the recording of it. And so if you want to reproduce a hip hop track or a pop track from Drake or The Weeknd or something that you might hear on current radio, what you actually are dealing with is a recording that consists of a keyboard loop that's been programmed, a synth bass, a drum loop that's been programmed, and then something we call in the industry a top line hook, which is a simple bare bones rap or vocal line over those computer tracks. So being that there is no live instrumentation at this point, then it's harder for musicians to get work because the artist can reproduce it with Ableton, Pro Tools, Mainstage, things like that. So it changes, and I can say, though, that it constantly changes in the music business, and there may be a brighter future ahead for touring musicians. There is rumblings about something called new classic rock, which is kind of an oxymoron, but there are bands that are trying to bring back guitars like Greta Van Fleet, right, and Rival Sons and Royal Blood, and a lot of other bands. Bad Flower is a band that I've been involved with. And so there seems to be some interest now in rock music coming back, and that would enlarge the opportunities. But being that there are a lot more musicians than opportunities, to be real, if you're a musician, you may have to have a plan B where you work for a while at some type of job. Then you go out on a tour, and then you come back and you work doing construction, or you work at the Apple store, or even Starbucks or someplace like that. So, and unfortunately, the salaries haven't really gotten a lot better. So there used to be salaries of $10,000 a week, $5,000 a week. But even major new artists, the salary for starting musician for a pop artist that just released their first record and it's gone, through the roof, might be more in the range of $1,500 to $2,500 per week while you're touring, with of course per diems and things like that. So, so the reality is, if you're a musician, that you may have to think about working for less of a salary than it was before. I'll tell you though, the people that can still afford to pay large salaries to musicians are the people that charge high ticket prices. So the musicians that play with, say, Elton John and Sting and Paul Simon and Fleetwood Mac, Lionel Richie, Neil Diamond, people like that, those musicians can still get higher salaries. But if you're in a brand new band, the salaries are probably not what they were 10 years ago, 20 years ago, but that's the state of the industry. I will say, if you're a musician right now and you want to make yourself appealing, this is what I get calls for more than anything right now, is that there's less people in the band. To reproduce the record live may only require 2 or 3 musicians on stage. So a lot of times I get a request for somebody that plays keyboards or guitar and is also competent at Ableton or playback or running tracks. So if you want to get work as a musician now, your best thing that you could do would be to concentrate, of course, on your skills as a musician, but really make an effort to learn Ableton or some type of playback. Even drummers and almost any musician now should be familiar with computers and reproducing playback. It's a different world out there. The audiences that buy tickets for pop artists they basically want to sing along to the record, and they don't want you to get freaky. They want it to sound like the record. It's not Maggot Brain, by Funkadelic or something. So when you go to see a pop star do a live show, you're essentially hearing about 60% of it is live and 40% is actual tracks from the recording, or it could be as much as 70% track and 30% live. So basically what's happening now is musicians are getting hired to reproduce the record. And rather than go kicking and screaming and, this isn't what I want to do, if you want to get work, if you want to get tours nowadays, you should just accept the fact that you have to become a little bit more computer savvy and learn how to do playback, and accept that the band that you may play in may only be one person or 2 people or 3 people. So I constantly, to stay competitive, go out and see artists in clubs and arenas and places like that. And I am very aware of how much is on a computer. And then I just have to react accordingly. Musicians aren't happy about it, but as of right now, as of this point in the music business, that's kind of where we stand.
Hey Insiders, we hope that you've been enjoying our featured interview. Stay tuned because we've got so much more value coming your way. But before we dive back in, a word from our sponsor. Hey Ritch, you're the founder, CEO, legend of Music Business Registry. Tell us what the Music Business Registry is all about.
Well, what it's about, Eric, is it's a company that is designed to provide the most accurate and up-to-date contact information for the music business. So if someone is looking to reach the A&R community, if someone is looking to reach music publishers, if someone needs to reach artist managers, if someone needs to reach music attorneys, if someone's looking to place their music into film and television and needs to reach all the music supervisors, that's the contact information that we provide. We've been doing it for 28 years. We're sort of the industry standard, if you will, for the music business, and have been serving them since 1992. So that's what we do.
Amazing. So if I wanted to find out, let's say A&R people from Warner Brothers, let's say, I can just go in there and find that in the A&R registry?
Absolutely. You'll find all of the Warner Brothers in there. You'll find the Warner Brothers in LA, Warner Brothers in New York, Warner Brothers in Nashville, Warner Brothers in London, Warner Brothers, probably in Australia as well. So those are the main territories that we cover.
Amazing. And we're offering all of our insiders right now that are listening, if you visit musicregistry.com and use coupon code MUBUTV10 at checkout, you'll get a 10% discount off your first order. That's musicregistry.com, coupon code MUBUTV 10. Anything else you want to say, Ritch?
Well, when you're ready to put your music to work, musicregistry.com. What specific things do musicians need to do who want to get on your radar to make you aware of them in terms of, adding to you the database or, to be considered for work? Are there specific things that stand out to you for new clients?
The way that I add musicians to my database is through many different avenues. And when I counsel musicians at music colleges, they ask me, what can I do to get to the next level of my career? What can I do to get more opportunities? So not just with me, but if you are a drummer and you want to escalate your career, there's a few things that I'll summarize it very quickly. But what you have to do is adopt a lifestyle that includes doing research on a computer every day, see who's going on tour, what's going on at record labels, what band member may have left a key band, then spend part of the day making contacts with friends. Of course, there's a lot of friendship going on, but there's a small amount of networking and business being done. Is it true that Stevie Wonder is going on tour? Or did you hear that the bass player left Disturbed or whatever it may be? But it's based a lot on friendship. And then at night, you either play in a band or you rehearse. And I will say this, the more bands you play in, the better your options are of getting a good level job, because many musicians were in the opening act or they happened to be in the right place at the right time. I believe that Nine Inch Nails hired one of their drummers just as Trent Reznor was walking through a baseball field in San Diego, happened to walk by a drummer that was playing in the Lost Prophets. So you need to get out there and play in different bands. People that work with you will get to hear you play, like with Taylor Hawkins and the Foo Fighters, and that may be your avenue to other things. So you need to play in a number of bands. You need to get out and hang with other musicians. Right now in LA, we have about 3 jam nights where musicians can go and network and sometimes play. The one on Monday nights is geared towards a demographic that's more in their 20s and 30s. And the Tuesday night one at the Whiskey. Oh, the Monday night one is at the Viper Room.
Yeah, Sunset Jam. I know
Right.
Eric Hemmel real well, as a matter of fact. So yeah.
Right. So Eric has a one that's, a lot of my students go to, and a lot of people the same age as Eric attend that one. The Tuesday night one is musicians with a little older demographic, the one at the Whiskey that started it all, called the Ultimate Jam Night. And at that one, you might hear some of the most amazing musicians in the world, but the people on stage many times are a little bit older. But if you want to see amazing talent, you can go there and see people like Tom Morello or Nuno Betancourt or Greg Bissonette or just phenomenal musicians. But even if you're not on the stage, all of those things, all of the jam nights are great opportunities to network with people. And if you look at a lot of well-known musicians, they're always playing at a lot of bands. And whenever I run into somebody that's successful, like Josh Freese, for example, who's a incredibly successful drummer, if you look at his career, somehow he's always managed to be in the Vandals, but he also has juggled spots in the Replacements and Devo and Nine Inch Nails.
Yeah.
Currently, he's with Sting, and when he's not with them, he might play with Taylor Hawkins' cover band, Chevy Metal. These musicians are never sitting around waiting for the next tour. Taylor Hawkins has a cover band when he's not in the Foo Fighters with, I believe, Chris Shiflett is in it. And they went to a beach fest in Redondo Beach 2 or 3 weeks ago. and they played an entire set of Van Halen, and Taylor sang, and Josh Freese played the part of Alex Van Halen, played drums. So that's a secret with these musicians, is that they are never sitting around idle. And so if they want to escalate their career, the key is to do all those things, not one of those things, but anticipate this is going to take the rest of your life. If you're going to be a working musician, you have to do all these things all the time, constantly building contacts, friendships, networking, keeping track of management companies, playing in as many bands as you possibly can without getting people upset with you.
Right.
And then just being out with other musicians. So if you are willing to do that for the rest of your life, if the rest of your music career, that's where you're going to find success.
Great. Barry, for our audience, I know you're well versed in documentaries and various books and stuff like that. Are there any great books that you can recommend our audience of musicians that you would recommend?
Yes. Well, I've always been a believer in Our Circle of Friends. The Bobby Borg book is great, and the documentary I just saw, I believe it was on Showtime, about Brian Head Welch, who is the keyboard player of Korn.
Yep.
Was a really enlightening film. If you can seek it out on Netflix or something like that, it really shows, what can happen over the long term of your career. It's not exactly a rosy picture.
Right.
But it's a very enlightening picture of what some musicians have to go through. And then, of course, the other F word, was something. And even in a strange way, Star is Born, which, people can see right now on cable.
Right.
But if you look at that band that Bradley Cooper has in that show, it's actually a band called Promise of the Real, with a local band, Lucas Nelson, who is Willie Nelson's son. And they hired Lucas and Promise of the Real, which, by the way, is also Neil Young's backup band, to teach Bradley Cooper, as his character in Star is Born, what it's like to be on stage as a rock star. So I was fascinated to watch that and see how they coached him to come from being just an actor. And so he spent a significant amount of time with Lucas Nelson to learn how to be on stage, learn how to be a rock star. And it was a great break for that band. But as you see that show, you might be observing the fact that this is, a brand new band that got some breaks the last couple years. And now everything seems to be happening for them. Speaking of people seeing you play, Neil Young was at one of these festivals and decided to jam with Lucas Nelson and Promise of the Real. And after he played a few songs with them, he said, "Hey guys, I have a new touring band." If they hadn't been there, it wouldn't have gone down like that. So they tour with Neil Young. They are starting to see some exposure from Star is Born. And then Lucas Nelson is, as a band, they're taking off. So they're going to open for the Rolling Stones. So that's just something you might think about when you see Star is Born. It's about 70% factual, realistic. There's a lot of the stuff with the management in that, as you guys have probably seen it. That's a little bit of a stretch, and the record label. It's hard to imagine that, 1 month she's a country star and the next she's a pop star. But then I thought, well, Taylor Swift. So anyway, that's just something I happened to think about recently. And then there's documentaries, of course, about Hired Gun is a good one.
That's a great one.
Right. There's the movie for the Motley Crue movie. And on a larger scale, there's This Is the Year of the Queen movie and the Elton John movies. So, those are some things you might want to look at.
What pieces of advice do you have for musicians who really want to progress their own careers in the music business today, either as musicians or through live performance, or just in terms of their career in general?
Yeah, there's a few things I can tell you. It's a little bit different. If you're a musician that's looking to become an employee, then that's one thing. If you are a singer-songwriter and you want to move ahead with your career as an artist, that's another thing. First, I should say that accept that rejection is part of our business, and that our business, the music business, is largely based on opinions. Some people have better opinions, more informed, or have better results, but everything in our business is people sitting in offices saying, I think this should be the next single. I think this is who we should sign. Or I think we should go in a dubstep direction. Or I think that this is the right guitarist for the band. Or this is the right look. And many, many times they get it right. But a lot of times, being that you're at the mercy of somebody, I know that Katy Perry was signed to Columbia Records when I was transitioning from there under the name Katie Hudson. And without getting into it a lot, very complicated, but I did talk to her when I worked for her with her band years ago. And she said, well, they were so excited in the beginning, and eventually somebody decided they weren't feeling it. And the same people now that take credit for signing her are the same people that dropped her. So in the time I was there, we had maybe 6 platinum acts that were signed to us, and somebody decided they didn't have a future and dropped them. So many, many artists, including Katy Perry, have been rejected by labels. A lot of people think Bruno Mars is an overnight sensation, but he actually played around Los Angeles at the Mint and a club in Santa Monica for a good 2 years, and you could see him for $5. Again, he wanted to be out playing as much. Eventually, he got signed because of his writing and producing skills. But you cannot let yourself be rejected, either as an individual musician. If you go to an audition, they don't hire you. It may just be that there's something that you're not aware of. So you can't take it too personal. Understand that rejection is part of this. And dedicated artists, professional musicians, what they do is if they encounter a roadblock, they move on to the next thing. So if somebody doesn't get an audition, they start working on the next one. Or if somebody doesn't get the opportunity at a label, they go to another label. So too many musicians and artists take it too personal. And I feel bad that a lot of them go back from an audition as an artist or for a tour or something like that, and they think, hey, I'm not talented, or my music isn't right, or something like that. I do recall seeing Prince, for example, open for the Rolling Stones at the Coliseum, and I can't tell you how many people were throwing things at him and hated him and everything else. So, everybody has had times where somebody doesn't understand their music. So, to break it down, if you're an individual musician, understand that you should always work on your craft. Make sure your appearance is timely. Do a lot of research before you audition for somebody. Keep in good shape, because part of being a musician is television, things like that. Stay up on current technology, and that will help you be competitive. If you're a individual artist, understand that the more that you can diversify, if you can learn how to produce your own material, if you can, accept the modern recording music and things like that, if you can learn about how the process to get attention, which at record labels now a lot of times is all about like who's getting attention at YouTube or Spotify. And the way A&R is at this moment is that a lot of times the A&R and management communities are looking for people that accomplish a lot on their own. And then when it becomes very visible and it's almost a sure thing, then record labels and managers jump on a moving train, and then it moves forward from there. So, just understand that it's not always going to happen for you overnight. Don't take it too personal, and see if you can improve. But you have to always be a better musician, but you also have to navigate through all of the ever-changing process for people that have to adapt to new kinds of playback, new kinds of bands, computers, and things like that. One thing I can tell you, for example, some musicians came to audition for a very popular girl artist, and she broke up with her boyfriend on tour. Her boyfriend was the guitarist. When I gave her guitarist to replace him, when she got back to Los Angeles, I noticed they all looked like her ex-boyfriend, the ones that she picked to audition. So she had me bring 6 guys there. They looked just like her former boyfriend. And all 6 of them were great. They didn't get hired because the boyfriend heard that we were having auditions, and then he came back and said, "Honey, I love you. What can we do to work this out?" But somewhere I realized there's 6 guitar players thinking, you know what, I could have done better. I didn't have the right equipment. I didn't learn the song well enough. So there may be things that you don't know about, and you cannot let it affect you. You just have to try and always be improving yourself, always practicing, always keeping up on technology. Don't let your image get stale, and learn about the current trends in music. And that's how you will actually find success.
Great. What are the best ways somebody can get a hold of you, whether it's a musician, company that's looking to hire you?
Right. I'm really big on being approachable. And so my email is all over the internet, but I'm happy to share it here. It's one long word that says Barry Squire Music, which is spelled BARRYSQUIRE music @gmail.com. And then, of course, I'm on most social media, Instagram and Facebook and things like that. You can reach me through that. And I actually still make an effort to answer my phone at any hour of the day. So I'd love to hear from musicians, love to hear from people that might need musicians. That's how I have to stay in business, is to always be meeting new people and hearing new artists.
Barry, I can't thank you enough for taking the time to do this. I really am grateful to you. Thank you so much.
Yeah, thanks, Barry. It's been an honor.
Oh, yeah, anytime I can help. I owe you, Ritch.
Oh, no problem. All right, thanks so much.
Okay, talk to you guys.
I love Barry. He is such a great guy, and he does such a unique service. I don't know anyone else in the business who does what Barry does for as long as he does it, and who has the respect of the industry the way that Barry does.
Absolutely.
And it was so nice of him to say that about the start of his career. Because one of the things that's interesting about Barry, I met Barry. He was in the very first class that I ever taught at UCLA.
Wow.
In 1989, I mean, it was like, we're going back, 31 years, right when he started his career, and he was working at Warner Brothers then.
Right.
And I knew that he was working at Warner Brothers. And it's just, it was really, really nice, on how he basically developed this idea. The whole thing with Alanis Morrissette, which was on a sister label of Warner's, like Maverick.
Maverick, yeah.
And how he talked about the organic build, about how people would call and say, well, what about this? And
exactly.
We need a musician for this, and we need this.
Word of mouth. Yeah.
Exactly. Well, that was the world then. This was before the internet.
And I think one point that he did bring up that I think is something crucial for our audience that's listening, he said something that I thought, and I wrote it down immediately, which was, he wanted to do everything to become valuable to the company in any way he could. And anybody that's out there that's, that may not be an artist that's pursuing this on the business side, getting into a new job, whether you're an intern or whether you're actually starting at a low level, you just want to try to make yourself absolutely valuable in any way you can. And I thought that was a really interesting take that I took from that.
Yes, that even beyond just talent acquisition, which is the department he was in, he wanted to be able to provide an extra service. And he did. And word
started getting around about it.
Yes. And he talked about, finding singers for Prince or finding a guitar player for the Chili Peppers or whatever the situation. And Warner's was one of the major labels.
And
still is.
And how it grew just from the whole thing with Alanis Morissette putting that band together and, getting two of the biggest, Taylor Hawkins going off to be,
Foo Fighters,
Chris Chaney, Jane's Addiction, on and on and on. And, it started for him as like a part-time thing. And then it just grew into this thing where he became the go-to guy.
Absolutely. And the other interesting thing about that is that, from that organic beginning that you were just speaking of, how it evolved, the whole evolution of it evolving, from live auditions, which is how he used to do it, to now the role of social media and YouTube play at the highest levels.
Exactly.
Playing so much more of a part in that particular process. So you musicians out there, if you're trying to get gigs, this is really important, that your social media stay current, relevant, that you
look great on these videos and that you're performing and that you're constantly refreshing this. The whole thing with musicians playing on YouTube now where they're playing to songs and doing covers, it's become so simple now to set up your thing. And I think we're going to probably in the future on the video series, we're going to be covering this subject in the future because there's no excuse to not have great videos of yourself, whether you're doing cover songs or anything where people can see you, because as Ritch alluded to, that's how this has evolved now. Artists that are looking for musicians to tour with, they're looking first on social media. They're checking you out on your YouTube, on your Instagram. And if you don't have your shit together on there, you're not going to get the gig, period, is what, basically Barry is saying.
Absolutely. And we can look at so many examples. I mean, one of the huge examples that's almost been mythologized now is how Journey found Arnel
Pineda,
through YouTube.
Exactly.
They saw him do
cover band for Journey, doing cover songs in the Philippines,
for Journey,
which is a great documentary too. That's
incredible documentary.
That's an incredible documentary
of the journey that man's had in his life and how it all happened. But I mean, right there, and what was so interesting, and the reason I use it as an example is that here Barry, who's behind the scenes on the ground today, is talking about how even at the top levels, that is still being used as the vehicle today.
And sometimes they're not even doing the auditions. They're doing sight unseen, seeing the videos and saying, okay, we've got the guys. That's it. We're done. I mean, which is
very strange, but okay.
But it's happening.
But it's happening and people are getting, so therefore that, and by the way, I want to emphasize, what Eric was saying doesn't mean you need to spend a lot of money, or what Barry was saying. You don't. You have a GoPro camera, which is actually better than a cell phone because the audio quality is going to be better. And you don't need to be spending fortunes of money doing it. You just need to have, a good GoPro camera, which is what? How much are those? $300-$400?
About 200, 250. Yeah,
okay.
They're relatively cheap. Yeah.
So
even with your cell phone now, with a combination of a cell phone and a mic setup that you can set up with, and you can, edit a video with the audio synced, not from the video, but from the cell phone, but from the actual audio recording, you can put together an incredible, we're seeing this daily on YouTube with all these artists that are doing videos. But I have an interesting anecdote for this whole thing with the auditions, because as you know, and I think I mentioned it in the interview, I went out on 2 auditions for Barry.
Right.
One which was for the Korn gig, being a background vocalist, and the other one was for Fuel when American Idol, I forget this gentleman's name from American Idol, ended up getting that gig and then he turned it down. But I went out on those 2 auditions, and one of the reasons it was between me and another guy, I can't remember his name now, Barry would probably remember it, but he ended up getting the gig. This is when they were looking for a background vocalist for this particular tour. And I had gone there, done the audition, went to actually this producer, the producer that we did his interview. God, I can't remember his name, but he's got that beautiful studio in Malibu. I can't remember
David
his name.
Foster?
No.
Rick Rubin?
No,
Shangri-La?
I forget now. But anyway, the guy who played in Oingo Boingo. My God.
Oh, Danny Elfman.
Not Danny Elfman, but his counterpart in Oingo Boingo. But anyway.
Oh, okay.
Needless to say, I went there. I didn't end up getting the gig, and one of the things was that they ended up giving it to him was because of the way he looked. Even though that this particular tour of Korn, they were putting these masks on, so you weren't going to be able to see who the people were. But anyway, it turned out that it was because of he had a more interesting look. And so the whole idea of what Barry is saying is that you want to make sure that you're presentable on the videos,
right,
and make sure that you're looking your best and you're playing the part. You know, not only from a technical standpoint, but also from an image standpoint.
Absolutely. And also the way he spoke about when you send in your video, or that you have a video that you're going to submit if you want to be considered for the job, is to make it consistent with the genre and with the style that you're submitting for.
Correct.
Don't send in a rock, drummer rock piece if you're going to be auditioning for a pop act or for an R&B thing. I mean, make it consistent. I mean, that sounds simple, but Barry pointed out,
Barry was talking about
people send you what they have rather than what they need, rather than what you need. The other thing that I thought was interesting is, the whole idea of what musicians need to do to get on his radar, which I thought was interesting.
Yeah.
And that's really more about, what we were talking about earlier, Eric, which is about living that life.
Adopting the lifestyle.
And he also spoke about something else, which I have been a big proponent of, and it's very, very hard to get musicians or to get people often into this, which is the whole thing of deep diving and immersing yourself into that world educationally, learning whose drummer is leaving, doing the research, reading, finding out what drummer is leaving which band.
Right. What tours are getting ready to go out.
Yeah, and the way you do that is you have to deep dive. You have to get into the publications that are doing that. You have to read all the blogs.
And you have to be networking and going out and meeting with these people.
Absolutely.
And it's a small club,
Yes.
It's a tight-knit club.
The other thing that I thought that he said that illustrated that particular point was he spoke about having your work as a musician, if you could be in as many bands as possible, it really helps expand your base.
Right, because you never know where somebody's going to see you at. And
where those opportunities are going to come from.
Yeah, and I thought the other thing that he said is based on friendships too. So again, it's getting back to the whole networking part of it, is going out and meeting up, going to the jams. If you live here in LA, we're more fortunate in that respect that we have, the Monday night jam at, Sunset, at the Viper Room. We've got the whiskey one happening on Wednesdays. Obviously now during this time, we're not having them, but, there's more opportunities. But, in every community in the country, there is a network of people. So, it's just building those relationships, I think, is what's the key point.
Absolutely. As Mick Fleetwood once said when I interviewed him for a video I did a long time ago, he said, the thing is, it's a job, it's a career, it's a life.
Hey Insiders, thanks so much for tuning into this episode. We really appreciate it. To get show notes, links, and everything that was mentioned during this interview, head on over to our official website at MUBUTV.com/podcast/show notes. If you're enjoying the content and what we're doing here on the show, please subscribe to the podcast on Apple Podcast, Stitcher, Spotify, or wherever you listen to podcasts from. And don't forget to rate and review our show over at iTunes. 5-star reviews are always welcome and help to ensure that our podcast stands out on the top rated and new and noteworthy charts on iTunes in our space. You can also find us on social media at Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter, all ending with the handle MUBUTV, which is spelled MUBUTV. Don't forget to catch our flagship show, the MUBUTV Insider Video Series, airing every week on YouTube at youtube.com/MUBUTV. This show was produced and created by Ritch, Esra, and Eric Knight. This show would not be here if it weren't for our amazing team, which are the following: interview editors Sarah Nissenbaum and Alex Taylor, show notes and transcriptions by Jani Chang, Nikoka Bodoglo, Lilia Owens, and Sarah Nissenbaum, theme music by Disciples of Babylon, and be sure to tune in next week for another episode of the MUBUTV Insider Podcast.